There's a certain kind of fear that only exists when you're home alone. Not the fear of ghosts, not the fear of monsters, but the fear of realizing someone else might already be inside the house with you. Because when you're alone, every sound becomes suspicious. Every creak feels deliberate. Every shadow looks wrong. And the worst part? There's nobody there to confirm whether you're imagining it or whether something terrible is actually happening. Tonight's stories come from people who thought they were safe inside their own homes, until one strange moment changed everything. And by the time they realized they weren't alone anymore, it was already too late. These are 3 Home Alone horror stories. When I was 16, my parents left town for the weekend to attend my aunt's anniversary party in Ohio. I begged them to let me stay home. At first, they refused. My mom kept saying she didn't trust me alone for 2 nights, but eventually she gave in after I promised I wouldn't invite anyone over. Honestly, I was excited. No parents, no rules. Just me, video games, junk food, and complete freedom. The first night was perfect. I ordered pizza, played games until almost 2 in the morning, watched horror videos with all the lights off just because I could. Nothing felt strange. Nothing felt wrong. Saturday was normal too. I slept late, cleaned the kitchen before my parents could complain, spent most of the afternoon in my room. Around 7 that evening, rain started pouring outside, the kind of heavy rain that makes the entire neighborhood feel empty. I remember standing near the living room window, watching the streetlights reflect off the wet pavement. Everything looked quiet, too quiet. That feeling started around 8. You know when you suddenly feel like someone's watching you? That. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone when I got this weird urge to look toward the staircase. Nothing was there, but I couldn't shake the feeling. At the top of our stairs was a small circular window. During the daytime, it let sunlight into the hallway. At night, though, it looked completely black, and for some reason, I couldn't stop staring at it. I laughed at myself, seriously. I remember thinking, congratulations, you watched too many horror videos. So I forced myself to relax. I turned the TV louder, opened another soda, tried ignoring the feeling. Then I heard it. A soft tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. At first I thought it was just rain hitting the house, but then it happened again. 3 slow taps, and this time, it came from upstairs. I muted the TV. Everything instantly felt heavier. The rain outside, the silence inside, my heartbeat. I sat there listening, nothing. Then, tap, 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 directly above me. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I remember trying to convince myself it was something stupid. Maybe a branch hitting the roof. Maybe pipes. Maybe literally anything normal. But deep down, I already knew the sound wasn't normal. I slowly walked toward the staircase. Every step creaked. The house suddenly sounded louder than it ever had before. Halfway up the stairs, I stopped. The hallway upstairs was dark. The only light came from my phone and that small circular window above the stairs. Rainwater slid across the outside glass. But for 1 second, I thought I saw movement. Like someone had stepped away from the window. I froze. I kept staring. Nothing. My brain immediately tried explaining it away. Reflection. Shadows. Rain distortion. I almost believed myself. Then I heard footsteps. Not outside. Above me. Slow. Careful. Like someone trying not to make noise. Every hair on my arm stood up. My bedroom was upstairs. So was my parents' room. There shouldn't have been anyone there. I whispered, "Hello?" No response. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt worse. Because now I knew someone had heard me. I backed down the stairs immediately. At this point, I was panicking. I kept telling myself maybe someone broke in. Maybe a homeless person. Maybe a thief. But no matter how hard I tried to think logically, one thing kept bothering me. How long had they been upstairs? I grabbed the largest kitchen knife I could find. Looking back, that was stupid. I should have just called the police immediately. But fear makes you irrational. Part of me still wanted to believe there was some harmless explanation. So instead of leaving the house, I went back upstairs. The hallway was empty. All the bedroom doors were closed. The bathroom light was off. Everything looked completely normal. which somehow made it worse. I checked my room first. Empty. Closet empty. Under the bed empty. Then my parents' room. Nothing. Guest room. Nothing. But while checking the guest room, I noticed something strange. The attic hatch was open. Just slightly. Our attic pull-down ladder was hidden in the ceiling. Normally the hatch stayed completely sealed. Now there was a thin black gap, and cold air drifted down from it. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I heard movement above me. A scrape, like someone shifting their weight. I dropped the knife. I don't even remember making the decision. I just ran. Straight downstairs. Straight outside into the rain. I called 911 from the front yard. The dispatcher kept asking questions, but I could barely speak. I just kept saying, "There's someone in my attic." Police arrived within minutes. 2 officers entered the house while another stayed outside with me. I'll never forget the wait. Standing there soaked in rain. Watching flashlight beams move through the upstairs windows. Then suddenly, shouting. One officer yelled something, another yelled back. A few seconds later, they dragged a man out of the house. I still remember his face, middle-aged, dirty clothes, completely expressionless. The police later told us he'd been living inside the attic for at least several days. Several days. That means he was probably already inside the house before my parents even left. And it gets worse. Much worse. When officers searched the attic, they found food wrappers, water bottles, blankets, and small holes cut into the ceiling. Holes positioned directly above bedrooms, including mine. The man had apparently been climbing down at night while people slept. The tapping I heard? Police believed it happened when he accidentally hit the window while moving around upstairs. But the detail that still keeps me awake happened afterward. One officer asked me a question. He said, "Did you notice anything strange recently? Missing food? Objects moved around?" And immediately, I remembered something. 3 nights before my parents left, I'd woken up around 2 in the morning. My bedroom door was open. I always slept with it closed. At the time, I assumed my parents had checked on me. Now, I know it wasn't them. To this day, I still can't sleep comfortably if there's an attic above me. And whenever I hear creaking overhead late at night, I don't ignore it anymore. Because sometimes, the person inside your house isn't trying to break in. Sometimes, they're already living there. I used to work overnight shifts at a small gas station outside Tulsa. My schedule destroyed my sleep. I'd usually get home around 6 in the morning, sleep until early afternoon, then spend the rest of the evening alone before going back to work. At the time, I rented a tiny house at the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy. Just 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. A living room and kitchen connected together. The house backed up to a wooded area. And at night, that place felt isolated. Still, I liked it. It was cheap. Quiet. And after dealing with drunk customers all night, silence felt amazing. For the first few months, nothing unusual happened. Then little things started changing. At first, it was easy to dismiss. One morning, I found a kitchen cabinet open. Another day, the TV was on, even though I clearly remembered turning it off. Then, food started disappearing. Not large amounts, just enough to make me question myself. A few slices of bread, half a bottle of juice. Leftovers missing from the fridge. I blamed exhaustion. Working nights messes with your memory. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Then one afternoon, I woke up to footsteps. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I was lying in bed half asleep when I heard movement somewhere in the house. A slow shuffle. Then silence. Then another step. I sat up immediately. Every light in the bedroom was off. Sunlight barely leaked through the curtains. And somewhere beyond my bedroom door, someone was moving. I grabbed my phone. No missed calls, no messages. I listened carefully. Nothing silent. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then, a drawer opened, very slowly. I felt cold instantly. Nobody else had a key to the house. At least nobody was supposed to. I quietly stepped off the bed and grabbed a metal baseball bat I kept beside the dresser. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. The bedroom door was slightly open, just enough to see part of the hallway. No movement, no sound. But I knew someone was there. I pushed the door open slowly. The hallway was empty, kitchen empty, living room empty. Then I noticed the back door. It was open, only a few inches. Cold air drifted inside, and the deadbolt lock hung loose. I knew I locked that door. I always locked it, especially because of the woods behind the house. I searched every room. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself someone had tried breaking in and ran when they heard me wake up. I reported it to my landlord. He barely cared. He just said, "Probably teenagers messing around." That night, before work, I checked every lock twice, then 3 times. The next few days were normal. No noises, no missing food, no open doors. I started relaxing again, until Friday. That morning my shift ended early because another employee showed up unexpectedly. I got home around 4 instead of 6. The entire neighborhood was still dark. Rain clouds covered the sky. I parked outside and immediately noticed something strange. The kitchen light was on. I knew I turned it off before leaving. I sat in my car, staring at the house. Part of me wanted to drive away, but eventually I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe I forgot. Maybe exhaustion again. So I went inside. The house smelled wrong. Not rotten, not chemical, just unfamiliar, like damp clothes. I checked the kitchen. Nothing looked out of place. But then I noticed muddy footprints near the back door. Fresh footprints, leading into the hallway. Not out, in. I froze. The footprints disappeared halfway down the hallway because the carpet dried them. I remember staring at them for several seconds, while my brain tried processing what I was seeing. Someone had entered my house recently, and they might still be inside. I backed toward the front door, slowly, quietly. Then I heard coughing, very soft. From inside the bathroom, my stomach dropped instantly. The bathroom door was closed. I never closed it. Another cough, this one louder. I ran outside and called the police immediately. The dispatcher told me to stay in my car until officers arrived. Longest 10 minutes of my life. Every second felt unbearable. I kept staring at the house, expecting someone to suddenly appear in the window. Police finally arrived and entered the house. About 30 seconds later, one officer shouted. Then another. A man was dragged out in handcuffs. He looked filthy, thin, wild-eyed, and according to police, he'd been living beneath my house. There was a crawl space accessible from the woods behind the property. The man had apparently discovered a damaged vent months earlier. He used it to enter the crawl space. From there, he found a loose section beneath the bathroom plumbing that allowed him into the house, usually while I was asleep. Police later showed me evidence they found under the house. Blankets, cans of food, empty water containers. Even worse, they found photographs. Pictures of the inside of my house. Pictures of me sleeping on the couch. Pictures taken from inside my bedroom doorway. The detective asked if I'd ever noticed anything moved around. I told him about the missing food, the cabinets, the TV. He nodded like he'd heard it before. Apparently, cases like this happen more often than people realize. Sometimes intruders don't immediately steal anything. Sometimes they stay nearby, watching, waiting until they understand your routine, learning when you're vulnerable. I moved out 3 days later, didn't even finish my lease. And there's one thing I still can't forget. While officers searched the crawl space, one of them found a small notebook. Most pages were empty, but on one page, there was a sentence written over and over again. He never checks the bathroom. That sentence still bothers me, because it means the man wasn't just hiding. He was studying me, learning my habits, testing what I noticed and what I ignored. And if I hadn't gotten home early that morning, I honestly don't know how long he would stayed there, or what he eventually planned to do. Three years ago, my parents left for a week-long vacation in Mexico. At the time, I was 19 and home from college for summer break. Instead of leaving me alone completely, my parents asked my older cousin Derek to check on me every few days. I thought it was ridiculous, but my mom worried constantly, especially because our house sat far away from other homes. Long driveway, heavy woods surround the property, no close neighbors. During the day, it was peaceful. At night, it felt isolated in the worst possible way. Still, I wasn't nervous. I actually enjoyed being alone. The first 4 days were completely normal. I played games, ordered takeout, stayed awake until sunrise. Nothing unusual. Then Wednesday happened. That evening, a storm knocked out the internet for almost an hour. I remember sitting in the living room annoyed because there was nothing to do. Eventually, the power flickered twice before stabilizing. When the Wi-Fi finally returned, my phone exploded with delayed notifications. One of them came from our security camera app. Motion detected. Front yard. Timestamp 1:14 a.m. The notification confused me because it was only around 10 at night. I assumed the outage delayed the alert. Without really thinking about it, I opened the clip. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The footage showed our front yard during heavy rain. The camera quality was grainy because it was nighttime. Nothing moved. No person. No animal. Then, right before the clip ended, a face slowly appeared near the edge of the camera, not walking toward it, already standing there, just barely outside the frame, watching the house. I nearly dropped my phone. The person looked directly into the camera for maybe 2 seconds before the clip ended. I replayed it multiple times. Every replay made it worse. Because the face wasn't blurry. It was clear enough to tell the person was smiling. Not a normal smile, a wide, uncomfortable, completely emotionless smile. I immediately checked the live feed. The front yard was empty, no movement anywhere. Rain poured across the driveway. Trees swayed in the dark. Nothing else. I called Derek. No answer. Then I called my parents. My mom instantly panicked after hearing my voice. I told her it was probably nothing. Maybe someone messing around. Maybe a prank. But even while saying it, I didn't believe it. My dad told me to lock every door and keep the cameras open on my phone. So I did. I checked every entrance twice. Front door locked. Back door locked. Garage locked. All windows secured. Then I sat in the living room watching the security feeds. Around 11:30, Derek finally called back. He laughed when I explained everything. Said it was probably some drunk guy wandering around. But before hanging up, he said something that made me uncomfortable. He asked, "Did the guy leave footprints?" I checked the camera again. Rain covered the driveway, no visible footprints. Derek got quiet. Then he said, "Don't go outside tonight." That sentence changed the entire mood. I asked what he meant. He hesitated, then told me about break-ins that had happened years earlier near our area. According to him, someone had been entering isolated houses at night, not to steal, just to watch people. Most reports sounded too strange to believe. People claimed they woke up to doors open, objects moved, lights turned on, but police never caught anyone. Derek told me I was probably safe. But after hearing that story, I didn't feel safe anymore. Midnight passed. Then 1 in the morning, nothing happened. Eventually, I started calming down. I even considered going upstairs to sleep. Then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Backyard. I opened the live feed immediately. At first, I saw nothing. Then the camera adjusted to movement, and someone stepped out from behind the trees. Same person. Same smile, standing completely still, looking directly toward the house. I felt genuine terror for the first time that night, because now I knew this wasn't random. The person had walked around the entire property, watching, waiting. I called 911. The dispatcher asked if the person was attempting to enter the house. I said no, they were just standing there, watching. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way. I stayed on the line while checking every camera. Front yard, backyard, side entrance, garage. Then suddenly the backyard feed went black. Connection lost. A few seconds later, the side camera disconnected too. Then the garage. One by one, cameras started going offline. The dispatcher kept asking questions, but I barely heard her. I was staring at the final remaining camera, the front porch. Rain hammered the steps. The porch light flickered. Then the smiling man slowly walked into frame, closer than before. Much closer. He stood directly in front of the door, looking into the camera, not moving, not blinking, just smiling. I heard the dispatcher saying officers were nearby. Then the doorknob moved. Slowly, very slowly. The man turned it once, twice, then stopped. And for several seconds, nothing happened. I remember gripping a fireplace poker so tightly my hands hurt. I was certain he was about to force the door open. Instead, He leaned forward, right toward the camera, and whispered something. The security app didn't record audio clearly. But I heard enough. He said, "I know you're alone." Then all the lights in the house went out. Complete darkness, I screamed, not because of the darknesses, because I heard footsteps inside the house, upstairs. Heavy footsteps. The dispatcher immediately started asking if someone else was inside. I couldn't answer, I could only listen. The footsteps crossed the hallway above me, then stopped. I realized something horrifying. The smiling man at the front door wasn't the intruder. He was distracting me. Someone else had already entered the house. I ran toward the kitchen and locked myself inside the pantry. I could hear movement upstairs, cabinets opening, doors creaking, slow footsteps. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes your imagination spiral. I remember covering my mouth, trying not to breathe loudly. Then came the sound I'll never forget. The pantry door handle moved, very gently. Someone was trying to open it quietly. The dispatcher kept talking to me, telling me officers were seconds away. The handle moved again, then stopped. And from the other side of the door, someone whispered, "You should have gone upstairs." At that exact moment, police sirens exploded outside. Instantly, the footsteps ran. Fast, violent. I heard a back window shatter. Then silence. Police searched the property for nearly 2 hours. They never found either person. But they did find evidence someone had already been inside the house before the power outage. A basement window had been forced open earlier that evening. According to police, one intruder likely entered the home while the second stayed outside watching. The security cameras going offline? Their wires had been cut. And the final detail still terrifies me. While officers searched upstairs, they found muddy footprints leading into my parents' bedroom. But none leading back out. Police searched everywhere. Closets, attic, basement, nothing. No one. To this day, officers believe the second intruder escaped before they entered the house. But I'm not fully convinced, because after everyone finally left around 4 in the morning, I went upstairs to grab clothes before leaving with Derek. And inside my bedroom closet, I found something sitting on the shelf. A photograph, printed recently. A picture of me asleep on the living room couch from 2 nights earlier. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "You looked safer when you didn't know we were here." I moved out before my parents even returned from vacation, and I've never stayed alone in an isolated house again. Because sometimes the scariest part of being home alone is realizing someone has been watching you long before you notice them. If you made it this far, you officially survived tonight's stories. But before you try sleeping tonight, double-check your locks. Look toward the dark hallway. And maybe, don't ignore strange noises coming from upstairs. Because the people in these stories all believed they were safe, until one small detail proved they weren't alone. If you enjoyed tonight's video, subscribe for more terrifying stories uploaded every week. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous place isn't an abandoned building or a haunted forest. Sometimes it's your own home.